Yep, sure. My name is Brian Brackenborough. I'm the Chief Information Security Officer for Channel 4 Television. My career path is probably quite standard for everybody else that works within information security. Left school, got into IT, but then I found that with the more I was doing, every day security was creeping into it more and more. And then in around about 2007, I ended up applying for a cybersecurity role, which I got, and I've been in cybersecurity ever since. So what I find interesting about cybersecurity is that over the past number of years that I've been in it, it's evolved more because of the push to cloud. So when I started, it was all about having servers in the building, in a locked room that you could see, that you could touch. And now that they've moved away from that. So it's a lot more about putting it in the cloud, having somebody else being responsible for managing the actual tin, whilst you focus more on what you should be focusing on is ensuring that you can use that software or those services to the best of their ability. What's changed and been very, very quick over the past few years is the move to remote working. So more and more people are now working from home. They don't need to necessarily commute vast distances. And so your approach to security changes. So originally we were looking at protecting the office and having what we call a hard shell perimeter. Now suddenly we're protecting the data that's in the cloud, but also the users that are at home on a network that you don't necessarily know anything about. So as CISO, my job is quite wide-ranging, and I've always seen cybersecurity as breaking it down into three things really. So you've got your strategy and your governance, so ensuring that people know that your security is strong and you're able to report back to management at that level of success. You have your training and awareness, which is absolutely critical to make sure that your employees know what's right and what's wrong and what to look for. And then you've got your technology, so ensuring that the things that you have put in place are best fit, not best of breed, but best fit for what you need for your company. So within cybersecurity, particularly within the industry that I work, I'm very lucky that I am able to work with every single department. And that goes from the top all the way down to the bottom. So I will be working quite closely with the CEO and the board. Yeah, so I work with the non-executive directors as well, so for the audit committee, so that they have confidence that the approach we're taking to cybersecurity is the right one. But we get to work with all of the departments and all of the projects. So if HR, for example, wish to bring in a new system, we work with them to ensure that that's safe and secure and we're protecting the data of our own staff, for example. I think it's important for anybody within any industry at all to have access to cybersecurity advice, and that has to be from a qualified and trustworthy group of people or individual. But not all companies have the resources to be able to hire somebody themselves specifically if they're a small company, and we deal with a lot of small companies, 2 or 3 people just working together, so they don't have that opportunity to do that. So you need to be able to find third-party companies that are going to be able to provide that service, and you need to do your research when you're picking them. It could you might find somebody that you think's great, but in actual fact they don't necessarily have the qualifications that you want. So it's worth researching that company to make sure that they are qualified, that they do know what they're talking about, and most certainly ask for references from other customers that they have as well. One of the most critical things that you need to be able to do is ensure that your employees know what's right and what's wrong and have an understanding of cybersecurity and your approach to it. And so it's very, very important that you have policies and procedures and that you share those with your company. So it's very, very important that you have policies and procedures and that you share those with your employees so that they know what to do in the event of an incident, or if they see something that they don't like, or if they want to share their passwords, they understand the reasons why that is a bad thing to do. And so when you're writing those policies and procedures, you might not have an understanding yourself of what you need to put in those, and that's why it's important that you should reach out maybe to other people within your community, or maybe through a third party, or maybe even seek legal advice, because they should ultimately form part of your contract with your employee to ensure that they follow your policies and procedures. So one of the most critical things that you need to be able to do is ensure that your staff understand what they can and cannot do when it comes to using their IT equipment and cybersecurity. And the way that you do that is by having decent policies and procedures in place and sharing those with your staff. And these need to be really forming part of your contract that you have with your employees, which is why you need to get that wording right. So it's either by conversing and sharing information with collaborators or seeking a third party that can help you with that. Even if it's legal, make sure that they're clearly worded, that your staff understand what they need to do in the event of an incident, what they can do, what they can't do, but also encourage them to speak up and not to try and hide things, because the quicker you can find out about something, the quicker you can secure it. No particular company works in isolation. You are going to have suppliers and you are probably going to be a supplier for somebody else. And so it works all the way down the chain. And I've seen examples in the past where very, very small companies can be compromised by an attacker, and then they use that as a launch pad to get further and further up the chain until eventually they'll get to you as a company. So you have to be comfortable with the companies that you are working with and ensure that they have a good approach to security as well. If they do not have a good approach to security, they are your weakest link. And sometimes what that means is that you have to work with them and help them to understand. And that's something that we do, and a lot of people in the cybersecurity community are talking about this. It's not just about rules and regulations, it's about assisting those people, because in doing so you're making your industry stronger. It's probably quite natural to feel that if you have a breach, and by owning up to that, that you're confessing to having these vulnerability or by being weak. But in actual fact, transparency is incredibly important when you are dealing with your suppliers or your customers. So if you have a breach, the first thing that you need to do is to get the facts together and to tell the people that are going to be involved in that as quickly as you can, so that they can help protect themselves as well. They will be able to give you assistance. They will be able to provide you with the information that you need. They may be able to work with you to ensure that your communications to the public are together and in sync, because we have seen in the past where without that level of communication, two stories, completely different stories, can get out there to the public, and then that causes a complete loss of trust. I think one of the biggest challenges that companies are facing in this day and age is just the pace at which things happen. You're having to compete, and you're having to compete with companies that might have bigger budgets than you, which means that they can do things. And so you naturally feel as though you've got to keep up and you've got to work at that pace. You might even have to be the company that brings out that new fancy thing on your website quicker than anybody else. That doesn't mean to say that you should scrimp on your security. In fact, that makes it more important that you focus on your security and you put it in at the very beginning. It will cost you more money, it will take you more time if you think security is an afterthought. So you've got to build it in. And if you do that, you can compete. But it's a real struggle, particularly with the internet and that huge boom. You just always feel as though you've got to be there, you've got to do this, you've got to turn it around. And as a result, sometimes you can lose focus. That's when you need to be calm, and that's when you need to stick to your plan. It's very important as a company that you take cybersecurity seriously, but it isn't necessarily as complicated as you might think. You just need to get the basics right. And there are certain accreditations out there that will help you with that. So Cyber Essentials, for example, is one of those solutions. Now, it's just about the basics. It sounds daunting. It isn't. It's a fairly simple process that you can go through. And there are companies out there that will help you with that. But by doing that, not only does it make you secure as a company, but it also demonstrates to your prospective suppliers that you're taking it seriously. And therefore that builds that trust. So that means that might be something that you have as an edge against your competitors. The chances are your company doesn't sell cybersecurity. Therefore your management, your board, might not fully understand it. You might work for a company that sells beer. You might work for an airline. You might work for a company that makes TV programs. So you have to speak to your board at a language that they are going to understand. So you have to be clear and you have to be transparent. You don't want to scaremonger them. You don't want them to think that if they do not give you the money, the world's going to cave in or the sky's going to come crashing down. But you need to present them with the facts. If you've presented them with the facts and also provided them with a mitigation or a possible resolution, and they're scared, then maybe they should be, because this is big business. This is really serious stuff, and they have to understand that. What's really important is that you don't always go to the board with scare stories. You don't want to panic them. What you're trying to do is convey the facts and to demonstrate that there are mitigations that they need to take in order to potentially protect their company. And you need to be able to demonstrate that by doing that, that gives them the opportunity and the staff the opportunity to work in a safe and secure manner, which means that they may be able to push those boundaries more, to be more adventurous with some of their solutions to help benefit the company. So working from home or working remotely, that's not going anywhere. That is the new normal, and you're going to have to get used to it. But what you have to think about is, in the old days, you had a perimeterized network in your office, and that's where you were protecting your data. And that's no longer the case. You now have, if you have 1,000 employees, you have 1,000 networks that you need to protect now, and you know nothing about them. So the first thing that you need to do is ensure that there is clear guidance for your employees on what to do when they're working from home, who they contact if they have an issue, who they speak to if they need new tools or new solutions or whatever else that it is. So that's the very first thing. Make sure your policies and your procedures are clear and that your employees know them. The second one is provide them with the tools that they need to do their job. The second thing is provide them with the tools that they need in order to do their job, because if you do not, they will find a solution themselves. They always do. If you do not provide them with the opportunity to transfer files in a secure way, they will find their own solution, which may not be secure, and that's your data. So that's the second thing that you need to do. The third thing that you need to do is just turn on some basic security tools. Okay, so multi-factor authentication, which you have probably heard about, and if you haven't, you can search for it on the internet. It's very, very simple, but it's really, really effective, and it means that password breaches are not as significant as they used to be. They still are, but they're not as significant as they used to be. What you've got to instill within all of your employees is a security mindset. They are your asset, right? And they could be your security champion. They need to feel confident if they see something and they think it's a bit strange. They know who to contact to say, I think this is a bit weird, you might want to check it out. They shouldn't just ignore it. If you have that mindset in place, you will have one of the most securest organizations you could have. So cybercrime is like this battle, it's like good versus evil, and it always is going to be there. We're never going to beat them, but the main thing is that we don't lose. The problem that we have is that when we respond, we have to respond within the law. That's very, very important. When they attack, they don't. So the way in which we can beat that is through collaboration, through speaking with our peers and our other companies. Collaboration is key. And in the industry that I work in, for example, I meet on a very regular basis for the information security teams in our competitive companies. And we sit there and we share stories and we talk about the vulnerabilities that we've seen and the risks and the attacks that we've been able to beat. And by doing that, I can then take that information and I can add that to our systems to ensure we're protected from it. And we can also spot trends. So we are able to see when phishing attacks start to increase, or we're able to understand that when something that we're doing that's going to be quite significant and therefore maybe in the public eye, that we should expect a certain increase. So also what we look at is global events. So when there's a big sporting event, or there's a big celebration, or there's going to be a public holiday coming up, we know that that is a time when we might see an increase in attempts at cybercrime against our company or our particular industry. And so by sharing those ideas, we have a common thread or a common way in which we are going to retaliate. And we are, as I said, we're not going to win, but we are certainly not going to lose. I think one of the things that people have begun to realise, and this isn't new, but it is now more public, is that we have a problem with nation states. Countries go after countries, and it's the way in which they retaliate. And the war has become digital. So this isn't new, it is significant, but it's been around for quite some time. So it's not as if we're not prepared for it. And we work hard and we work together. And it could be significant. So we work hard in order to protect ourselves. And although the damage could be significant, we have done very, very well at protecting ourselves so far, and we will continue to do so. One of the most annoying things about the cybersecurity industry is buzzwords. So we have cloud, and we all talk about cloud now. But cloud's always been around. It's just somebody else's computer on the internet, isn't it? Another buzzword is zero trust. Yeah, so that's just a number of technologies that's designed to try and make your infrastructure secure. And one that really gets my go is artificial intelligence or machine learning. It's just a buzzword given for really well-written software, right? And that artificial intelligence or whatever is just very, very good algorithms, which is the whole reason why you're buying it. So for me, the software either is going to do what you want it to do or it isn't going to. Now, as time goes on, yes, you're going to start to see these things improving. But me personally, I just don't buy the artificial intelligence thing. So if as a company, you have bought loads of software and you've got all these things, so you're trying to grab the information about your customers and you're trying to drive into it to understand how you can better advertise to them, sell them more products of what they want. And these are all going into systems that's doing all that number crunching. And at the same time, you've got your staff working from around the world and they're all logging in. They're all logging in somewhere, and all of these systems that you bought are producing information about what's going on. And that can be millions and millions of log files every single day. And somewhere in there, buried, could be that little attack from another country or from somebody. And you need to be able to spot that quickly. You can't do that by manually going through all of those lines of reports and alerts. So you need to pump that into something. And a lot of people are turning towards security operations centers, so SOCs. And the whole idea of a SOC, or a SIM as well, which is a security incident and event monitoring system, is that it takes all of that information from your systems, crunches it very, very quickly, narrows down all of the false positives, and then at the end of it, if you're unlucky, but it will tell you, we've just found something strange. We found somebody that logged in from London and then 20 seconds later tried to log in from overseas. And it will enable you to make a decision about what you need to do about that. Your SOC might even in some way be able to be configured so that it would automatically stop that second login. These things are really, really fast paced, right? And you need to be able to keep on top of them. It doesn't take long for somebody to get into your network and wreak havoc. But there are things that you can put into place to help make sure that you're aware of what's going on so that you can make informed decisions about how you protect or mitigate against those things. I've always felt that collaboration is key. It sounds weird that you might want to be talking to your competitor on a regular basis to try and find out what cyber vulnerabilities they have or what solutions they're putting in place. But actually it's really, really important. And I've found in my career, it's incredibly beneficial. Whilst as a company, we might be competing, within the security department, we're not. And we're trying to make each other's lives as easy as possible. So if I know that my competitor has seen something come out of another country and they've given me the heads up so that I can protect against it, I will do the same for them. And then that will filter down and we will do it the same for other companies. The people that supply my company are going to be the people that supply their company. And they're going to be the people that supply other companies as well. So if we can all work together to ensure that that supplier is secure, it makes all of our lives a lot easier. As well as collaboration with competitive companies or people within the same industry, I think you should also be looking at some of the websites where you can grab some really, really good information. And there's two that I would recommend, I think. NCSC, the National Centre for Cyber Security. NCSC, the National Cyber Security Centre, has got a wealth of information about how you can protect your own company. And they're very, very good at bringing out new information about things that they're seeing so that you can be better protected. But another one is the Federation of Small Businesses. And they have a really, really good website and they have some really, really good information on there. And it's laid out very, very clearly. And it's about getting your basics right, as I have said before. Once you've got your basics right, you can start to be as adventurous as you want with your security. But I promise you, if you've got your basics wrong, you will always be vulnerable. It can be quite difficult to predict the future anyway. And when you're looking at cybersecurity, it's going to be dependent on certain trends. And we've seen in the past, global events can completely change your outlook. And you can write 2 years off straight away. But I think one of the things that we have noticed is that governments are beginning to take this more seriously. And so I think they're going to start to try and introduce more and more regulation and give you more and more clarity about what you're supposed to focus on and what you're supposed to be protecting. We have GDPR, but I think that's around the data. Well, I think what we're going to start to see now is about the security and what businesses need to do in order to protect their own staff and their business as a whole.